Well, here's something I wasn't expecting to have a hand in. Hey guys, Space Guru 5 here. I'm gonna try to keep the emotions on the down low considering y'all have likely heard a lot of them expunged already, but I can't make any promises. I first met Joshua a week after I published the co-op I did with my friend 8363MTR on T-Bone 2004. It was through him that I ended up befriending the likes of the Blind Bard, T-Bone, the Canadian Toast, and several others. I thought of Joshua as a quirky but overall benevolent guy, and he and I never had any real beef with each other, although that's likely going to change thanks to my inclusion here. C'est la vie. Following his exposure by Fox and subsequent voluntary channel deletion, as well as his flight from the Discord community he fostered, I thought that would be the end of it. But man, oh man. All the revelations we've had over these past few weeks really awakened me to just what kind of person Joshua is. And while I don't necessarily consider him a malign figure in my tumultuous life story, there's no denying that the man has some massive problems that he has zero one to resolve, therefore he is on the fast track to personal stagnation. Joshua has been upfront about his struggles with Asperger's syndrome and major depressive disorder in the past. I myself have had struggles with depression as well, on top of anxiety, ADHD, and potentially undiagnosed autism, so I was often the guy who'd give him advice whenever he needed somebody to turn to. And no, me stating all of this is not me giving him a go easy on him he's autistic card. These disorders may explain some of his actions, but they certainly don't excuse him in any way. My goal here is to slightly escalate my force from private suggestion to public service in the hopes that Joshua will be held accountable for his actions and therefore learn from them. I'm not here to start a witch hunt or to condone the ongoing cyberstalking he's been subjected to. I'm simply here to reach out to a friend who unceremoniously cut me and everyone else off, and therefore made it impossible for me to reach him directly. This will be a hard pill for him to swallow though, so be forewarned, no more Mr. Nice Guru. From my experience, Joshua has shown that he is someone who thrives off of other people's attention and goodwill, and lashes out whenever it's not given to him, never thinks before he acts or speaks, has a habit of metaphorically sticking his arms into bear cages despite everyone telling him they'll be pulling back stumps, and has full-fledged meltdowns every time he does pull back stumps. I've lost count of how many times this has happened. From what I recall alone, he did it with T-Moss Boss, T-Bone 2004, Tyrone Magnus, Fox, when he applauded the YouTube shooter in 2018. No, really, he actually did that.
Nassim was a representation of everything that we ever felt inside towards YouTube. Especially that horse-faced Susan. She was everything that we ever felt. And if we're really honest with ourselves, had thought of ever doing to YouTube. So I applaud Nassim. Thank you for taking a stand, Nassim. Thank you for doing what we YouTubers felt towards YouTube.
Honestly, the fact that I know about more than one of these instances should really indicate just how stubborn and reckless Joshua can be. Almost every time he did this, Bart and I would have to tell him to quit instigating shit and antagonizing other people. Joshua would continually make up excuses to keep going, and so he did until everything boiled over and he got hurt. You know, like we warned him. There was one instance where he even told us to let him have his fun and called me and Bart children for calling him out. And Josh would say some really nasty things to people too. Most saliently, he would call people unwanted pregnancies, failed abortions, unswallowed cum shots, and or walking miscarriages. Real smart words for an adopted kid to be saying to people, right? And then when people would give him his shit back, he would try to rally us up to defend him instead of fighting his own self-started battles himself, and go into hiding until it all went away. And then we'd be sitting there trying to comfort and placate him because he was our friend and we actually cared about him. Considering the guy has depression, it was especially concerning to me that he kept on repeating these cycles and ended up hurting himself worse and worse each time. He even once said to me that he wished he took my advice. It looks like his falling out with Fox was the last time, as like I've said before, he subsequently closed his YouTube account, and this was all on the back of a really vitriolic comment he made about Fox during one of Jar's videos, which also contains some rather transphobic rhetoric, but we're losing the plot a little bit. So really, he should have actually internalized my advice instead of just hearing it. But that's on him now. And it wasn't always just him doing the antagonizing. He would appoint questionable people as admins without our knowledge or consent, and they all wound up damaging either him or us in the end. The more noteworthy examples include BMF, TSK, and someone who I will only call the bookkeeper. If you've seen the video Josh, Bart, and I made for Just the Robots channel that was posted in March 2021, you will be very familiar with BMF & Co. To recap, BMF is an underage user who ended up stalking and harassing Joshua for over a year after he was demoted as an admin. At the time, TSK was associated with BMF, having both come from the same Vidly community, and they were once an admin as well. They ended up being complicit in these actions when we asked who was leaking our staff exchanges to them, and they refused to answer. And then there was the bookkeeper. Joshua found this guy through someone called Pescator, and hired him as an admin solely because he knew how to deal with raids. The bookkeeper wound up being quite disrespectful to some in Joshua's community, including myself, and he roused the ire of quite a few server staffers as well. There was even one time where I issued a bot warning to him for being disrespectful to me, and when Joshua retracted it, I tried to explain why it was issued in the first place. This, however, was pushed aside when Joshua drew focus on BMF copyright striking his YouTube account into suspension. I'll go into more detail about this later, but because of this I had to wait until the end of that weekend to properly speak my piece. Mind you, this happened on a Friday, and Bart and I couldn't get our word in until either Monday or Tuesday. Joshua had to take preference above all else. Anyway, the bookkeeper wound up getting the banhammer after we found out he impersonated a police officer to solicit sensitive info from some kid he had a beef with online. See, this is what happens when you hire someone simply for just showing up. There's just way too much shit to go through, guys. I'm seriously just at the tip of the iceberg here. I haven't even gotten into his sad love quest shit yet. But hey, since I mentioned it, let's get into it now, huh? It should be obvious to everyone and their mothers that Joshua is an exceptionally lonely man without any control over his sexual desires. Or, to be blunt, an incel. If he wasn't trying to flirt with some of the female members of his server and subsequently creeping them out, Angel Star and Box of Fox, he was posting lesbian porn in places where minors could see it. This even occurred well before we set strict age limits on membership, and even with actual children as admins like BMF and TSK. Or he would tell my friend Smash Pictures, who was also a minor at the time, about how he'd like to Eskimo kiss him, and that he'd date him if he was his age, among several other weird things. Joshua is in his 30s, guys. Oh, and let's not forget about that time he wanted T-Bone to spend a week with him in New York, while he was still in a relationship. Yeah, like I said, incel. Let me tell y'all something. The only good thing to come out of any of this is that Josh helped me realize my asexuality, and that he didn't try to make a move on me as well. Although I do recall him telling me he loved me in VC once, even though I'm currently 24. Weird. Now on to his self-centered behavior. As I alluded to before, Joshua has a habit of inserting himself into places where he really shouldn't. Whether it was a face cam at the end of a jar video he was editing, or a random remastering of an old video, or just ordinary happenings in his own server, Joshua had to find a way to direct attention to himself. And no, I'm not just talking about birthdays or any positive or negative things in his life. That's not even worth mentioning here. What is worth mentioning is all the times he whinged to us whenever he faced heat for his goading and then expected us to pick up after him. Entire conversations have been derailed for his own sake. Look, I get it. Bad shit happens in life. It happens to everyone, and it's natural to expect sympathy for it. But dude, you brought a lot of shit on yourself with your near-incessant trash talking. Maybe not so much the cyber-stalking, but all the criticisms that have been lobbed your way and getting back what you have put in have definitely been warranted. I sympathize with you. Really, I do. But don't cry about how your arms got ripped off by a bear when you're the one who refused to listen to us telling you not to stick them in the cage to begin with. And more importantly, don't set double standards for people who are also going through their own mental health crises, since they have their own lives too. You chastised Bart for his emotions about his situation with Brightech, but you had no problem telling us all about your emotions over your beef with God knows how many people in your life. You berated Smash Pictures for leaving your server due to his mental health, yet you have no problem leaving your server multiple fucking times because you panic whenever somebody criticizes you online. And what's worse is that to this day you try to act as though you know more than anyone else. You talk about how it's bad to be a narcissist and how bullying is wrong and whatnot on Facebook. Well, fuck me. What the hell am I looking at then, huh? It's also nice of you to cut out context whenever you do ask for sympathy, so that you can always make yourself look like you were totally innocent and totally the victim here. Well, as someone who's bore witness to your behavior multiple times, no, you're not. Quit pretending. Lastly, I want to share one more little thing. Joshua liked to have other people participate in his dramas or to get themselves involved in dramas for his own personal gain. This happened when I made my diss track towards T-Bone 2004 and 2019, which was just completely mean-spirited and done just to piss on the guy.
Get you dated, ain't worth no more. You be salty and bitter, you're such a whore. You're conceited, you elitist, you think you got a tood. But Holmes, you did not know that you're as plain as dog food. You be illin'.
This happened when Josh asked Bard to create a Gab account to retort to Burke Productions calling Josh out. This almost happened when he asked Bard, Smash, and me to upload a video he made about EDP445. This almost happened when Josh came to me and Bard on Facebook, after he left his server, to tell us to cut off Berg, which I never did. By the way, you complained about Box forcing you to choose your friends, and yet here you are later trying to force us to choose ours, prepare for standards, and make them double. Like, dude, nobody should have to stick their necks into your line of fire. You can't just treat people like they're pawns in a game of chess. If you're really that much of a dullard to want to exacerbate existing dramas for your own personal benefit, then do it yourself. Don't hide behind me and my friends just because we're here. I'm certainly not going to tarnish the goodwill and reputation I've built for myself over 10 plus years just because you can't say no to being an attention whore. Considering the fact that you always wind up hurting yourself every time you engage in that shit, maybe you could just, I don't know, stop doing it? But you are literally incapable of stopping. You always have to find an excuse to keep going, and you've sold yourself on your notion that you can improve. You brought this on yourself, Joshua. Every fucking last bit of it. You should be able to deal with your own shit by now. Ah, damn it, I'm getting too emotional. That's my sign to wrap this up. So, bottom line. Joshua has some serious personal nadirs to overcome if he truly wants to see his problems come to an end. But he has convinced himself that he can't, and he's personally shown me and everyone else that he can't, and so his problems never will come to an end. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's an easy, quick process, because it isn't. I can speak for myself. I was crippled with depression for most of 2018, and I wound up acting like a real bastard to people. I became overly attached to my success and became hostile to people who had legitimate complaints about my work. It took a bunch of people, even my own friends, calling me out in order for me to come back to my senses and start truly fixing myself. It's taken me nearly 3 years to come out of the hole I was in, and while I'm still not the best at managing my mental disorders, at least I have the intestinal fortitude to commit to it and actually learn to break from those vicious cycles. And look where I'm at now. Now I've regained a lot of people's trust and respect in my native slideshow commentary community, even from some of the people I was nasty 2 years ago. Pony up, Montague, and try actually listening to me this time. This is for your own good, not mine. Trust me, I'd rather not be recording this right now, but it needed to be said. Seek help, smarten up, and straighten out. That's it from my end, folks. My usual line of content isn't typically this serious, and unlike Joshua, I keep my nose out of drama that doesn't involve me in some way. So if you do decide to check me out, and I highly recommend you do, don't expect me to be just another commentary channel. I'm just another slideshow commentary channel. I'm Space Guru 5, and as always, take care.